It's going to happen when you face difficulties. There will be times in your life in which disappointments will occur. When I was in the 11th grade, I didn't do my best, and I failed uh, 11th grade English. So I took it again in summer school, and I played around, and I failed 11th grade English in summer school. That was a disappointment. I remember one time where I had a friend that got me a job in in a warehouse, and I was making more money than I'd ever made before. But the owner of the business called me into his office and told me that I could not work there anymore, and I had to leave immediately. It was a disappointment. When my daughter Kelsey was about 4 years old, and she was having trouble breathing, I took her to the hospital, me and my wife, and they told us that her lungs were filled with mucus and she had pneumonia. That was a disappointment. When my daughter Kaylin grabbed a hot curling iron and it seared her hand, and blisters, and her skin tore off, and blisters were all over her fingers. It was a real disappointment. When my mother died and I came home to find her sloped in the chair holding the telephone, when she had called the last of her brothers and sisters that were still alive, and she took her last breath in my arms at 48, there it was a disappointment. Disappointments will happen. You can bank on that. You cannot avoid disappointments. However, you don't have to allow disappointments to discourage you, to damage you, and cause you to quit on whatever addiction has gripped you. You don't have to allow the disappointments of life to drive you to do it again. The one thing you can do is you can change the way you think about it. Yes, there are going to be some things where you can't change what happened, but you can change what you allow what happened to do to you. You can't stop disappointments from occurring. However, you can change the way you think about the disappointments that can launch you into a brand new destiny. You know, trouble will come. This lesson today on how to handle disappointments is all about changing the way you think. You know, I read somewhere that life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you respond to it. I want you to know how to respond, because addiction, one of the traits of addiction is it hides in disappointments. As soon as something happens that causes a negative emotion, cause you to be sad, cause you to be down, cause you to feel guilt or shame or anger or boredom or lonely, addiction pops up out of the midst of the disappointment, out of the midst of the negative emotion, and tries to grab you again. But I want you to know, in the middle of your problem, there will be a gold nugget that you can receive in the midst of the storm. Yeah. I'm reminded of this story about a king. I'll share it with you. In ancient times, a king had a boulder and placed it on the roadway. He then hid himself and watched to see if anyone would move the boulder out of the way. Some of the king's wealthiest merchants and carriers came by and simply walked around it. Many people loudly blamed the king for not keeping the roadway clear, but none of them did anything about getting the stone out of the way. A peasant then came along carrying a load of vegetables. Upon approaching the boulder, the peasant laid down his vegetables and tried to push the stone out of the road. After much pushing and straining, he finally succeeded. After the peasant went back and picked up his vegetables, he noticed a purse lying in the road where the boulder had been. The purse contained many gold coins and a note from the king, explaining that the gold was for the person who removed the boulder from the way. Every obstacle we come across in life gives us an opportunity to improve our circumstances. It's how you respond to your trauma, to your trouble, to your difficulty, to your disappointment. Well, this is how you should respond. First of all, it's going to happen. Don't get too overwhelmed. Expect things to go wrong. Now, I know I'm a pastor, and I know that we as believers are taught to speak life, to claim it, to speak faith, to not proclaim anything negative. However, I do want you to know that it is wise to speak. It's wise to speak that way. But one thing is also wise, to expect there to be trouble. Jesus said that in this life we will have tribulation. The Bible also says, count it all joy when you fall into different temptations, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience, but let patience have her perfect work, that you may be perfect, entire, and lacking nothing. In other words, expect some trouble. Have a plan or a strategy to deal with trouble. Yeah, I want you to just do it. Have a plan to deal with the trouble. Be realistic. If you're going to get your house remodeled and the contractor tells you it's going to be done in 2 months, you might as well count on 4, because it's going to be some trouble. If someone tells you that I'm gonna always show up, I'm gonna always be on time, I'm never gonna be late, I don't want you to think that that's never gonna happen. Think in your mind they're gonna do their best, because most people can't guarantee you that they'll never be late. If you expect something to not go the way you want it to go, and you prepare for the disappointment, then you can have a strategy to deal with the disappointment, a strategy for just in case. Well, not only should you have a strategy, but I want you to know this. Remember, this is number 2. Remember, there is a cloud. In every cloud, there's a silver lining. Just remember that. Come on, type it up in your notes. Type it up in your comments. Type it up. Remember this, that in every cloud, there's a silver lining. What do you mean by a silver lining, Pastor? Well, I want to tell you this. There's something good hid in the trouble. And you got to get your brain to start thinking about the possibilities, not the predicament. You see, when you start thinking about the predicament and start focusing on the problem and focusing on how bad it hurts, how I couldn't believe he left me, how she took my money, I can't believe they fired me. When you focus on that, your mind will start fixating on so many things that will discourage you. It'll start searching for areas that when that happened, he must have been thinking about firing you then. And when those people were whispering when you walked in the room, they must have known about you being fired and they're talking about you. When she was late and she didn't call me and I was looking for her, she was out with her lover. Listen, I know. But if you focus on that, it will try to find situations to make you feel worse than what you did. However, if you start focusing on a solution, listen, your brain will begin to look for solutions that will bring you to another level. There is gold in them there pews. there's some good can come out of this. I'm reminded of Jesus. When Jesus was about to go to the cross, and it was in the Garden of Gethsemane, he began to weep. He began to sweat. He began to feel the pressures of what he was about to go through. And he said this, he said, my God, he says, if it be thy will, let this cup pass me by, but not my will, thy will be done. And he didn't even want to go through the trouble, but he knew that in order for him to become King of Kings and Lord of Lords, the in-between time was going to the cross. Listen, trouble don't last always. You got to understand that there's going to be something worth every bit of trouble you're going through. Every bit is going to be something worth it. Well, this guy, he lost his job. And he was of some age, and he was over 50. And he couldn't get another job. People didn't want to hire him because of how old he was. And so what he decided to do was, he said, well, I might as well clean out my garage and I clean up my basement. And he cleaned it and found all of the different things that his children had left and things of that nature. And he decided to have a yard sale. Well, it went really well. He did pretty good yard sale. And his neighbor noticed him out there in the yard. And his neighbor was a little bit, elderly. And so she said, do you mind coming over here and cleaning out my garage and my attic? And if you find anything that I don't want, you can have it. And he did. And he had another yard sale. Before long, she had told her friends. And then her friends told some other friends. And before long, he had to get a building to contain all of the merchandise that he was selling. Well, that business became a business that was successful in different states. Listen, the best thing that could have happened to him was him being fired, him losing his job. But when he lost his job, it produced a opportunity to start a very successful business that is still going to this day. So listen, in every cloud there is a silver lining. Number three, hear this. Look at disappointments as an opportunity to grow. Do you know that when babies are trying to walk, the first thing they do is they get up and they grab hold to the coffee table or whatever it is, and they're wobbling and they're wobbling, and then they fall down. But after they fall, it seems like they get up and they try it again. And before long, they're cruising from one table to the next. And then they try to walk. And when they walk, they fall sometimes. But because of the fall and it didn't hurt, it causes confidence to come. It causes, like, you start looking around and start seeing, if mama can walk, I can walk. If daddy can walk, I can walk. If brother can walk, I can walk. And then finally that child does what they were meant to do with no fear. They start walking and smiling and laughing. Do you understand that when you look at trouble as an opportunity to grow, you begin to prosper? You begin to get stronger. The only way you become bodybuilders, or the only way their muscles become bigger and stronger, is when they lift those weights until they hurt. Well, have you ever heard the statement, no pain, no gain? Well, that's what happens. There's no pain, no gain. But when it tears the muscles and they repair stronger and bigger. Listen, you're going to grow through the trouble. See, I believe that some trouble is meant to get you prepared for the next round of trouble. You get it? It has to do. You got to deal with that, because if you don't, it'll drive you into using. It'll drive you to drinking. It'll drive you to picking up, and it'll drive you to doing the thing that you said you'll never do again. Learn from it, grow from it, mature from it. You see, I believe, listen, in the Bible, when David was on the backside of the mountain tending the sheep, the Bible says there came a lion and there was a bear, and the lion came to get the sheep, but David he dealt with the lion, but then he killed the lion and cut his head off. But then a bear came. The bear stood taller than the lion, but David defeated the bear. Then the opportunity came for him to face Goliath, that was taller than the bear. And when he faced Goliath, he rehearsed to himself. Hear these words. He says, I slayed a lion and I slayed the bear. And the same God that delivered me from the lion and the bear will deliver me from this Philistine. And the same way I cut off his head, their head, I'm going to cut off his head. Do you understand that it was an opportunity to grow, to become stronger? And hear me. And when they faced that difficulty, and when he faced that difficulty, his life was changed forever. He became in line to be the king, simply because of the trouble that he had faced earlier. Do you know that it's a privilege to have trouble? It's a privilege to go through storms. It's a privilege to have urges and trying to break the cycle of addiction, if it's especially in your family. It's a privilege, because when you break the cycle, others can be set free. Others can be set free. Okay? All right. The next thing I want you to understand, number 4. Is that number 4? Yes. You got to look when you're going through, lick your wounds, but don't waddle in your disappointment. In other words, put an expiration date on how long you're going to cry. Hey, I've dealt with it. I'm going through, but I'm going to put an expiration date on it. I'm going to wipe my eyes. I'm going to stop crying about it, and I'm going forward. If you see it that way, that you're going forward, your brain will then look for the positive out of the negative. I talk to different persons that have been incarcerated. And when they get out of their incarceration, they, sometimes they have to see a counselor for different issues, of course. And when they come, I had someone that came to me and they told me they had been in prison for 26 years, and how they were having trouble functioning in life because the mindset of one in prison is different from the mindset of someone that's been set free. And he was explaining the difference between the different mindset. And I listened and I listened. And then I told him, do you understand you're sitting on a gold mine? Do you understand that your story is unique? You have a benefit that could come out of what's been troubling you. The mistake that you made, you can turn that mistake into $1 million. All you have to do is put it into a book. Tell it on social media, and watch your life turn out to be wonderful. Watch your story get somebody else through. You see, because I don't know how many individuals that spent 20 some odd years in prison. I don't know any individual that went through the something similar. And it's unique and it's precious that you survived prison and you still are in your right mind. Listen, you can find a way to prosper beyond your trouble. If your brain starts to think, if you start thinking positive and you don't stay in the problem very long. Number five. Next one. Listen to this. When you're going through, don't go through by yourself. Share your disappointments. Talk about it. Call a family member. Call a friend. Tell them you're having urges and cravings. Tell them that you've been triggered. Tell them that you've been having dreams about using, or dreams about gambling, or dreams about the food and overeating. Talk about it. Talk to someone that can understand your situation. So you see, this is what happens. The secret makes you sick, and you as sick as your secrets. My mother used to tell me this: what's done in the dark will come to the light. If you keep having thoughts about it, it's in the dark. And if you don't talk about it, you'll perform it after a while. It'll come to the light. But if you expose it, if you share it, if you talk about it and tell on your disease, tell on it, it takes away the power of darkness. The power and the control is released once you release it. It's sort of like a soda. When you shake a soda and it becomes the pressure on the inside begins to build up, and then finally when you pop the top, it'll explode. Well, that's how the disappointments are. When you think about it and you become fixated on it, and your brain keeps speaking to you, and just you talking to yourself, You need to talk to somebody so you can go and allow what's on the inside to come on the outside. And finally, and finally, watch this. Start writing things down. Write, express yourself. Express it, you write it down, keep a journal. I even like a video journal. Start writing the journal of the good things. Start recording and just saying some positive things. When things are going well, when things go your way, record it and record your smile, record your response. Talk about it. And then when disappointments come, when you start feeling low, you can go back and watch a journal of videos that you recorded to remind you that trouble don't last always. Well, I hope you've been received some benefit from this tonight. And I want you to know that you can live totally addiction free. 100% chance of living totally addiction free if you do it God's way. God's way. Well, God bless you. And I thank you for tuning in for Medicine for the Mind. This has been Mr. B, Pastor B, whoever you want me to be. That's what I be. God bless you.